You're listening to The Streaming Wars, the podcast that discusses all of the latest happenings regarding your favorite streaming services. Find out which service is winning the war this time around.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of The Streaming Wars. I'm Dustin and Tony is with me, and we are here to cover all the content news from January 31st through February 6th. We have a little bit of news for every service, so let's dive right into it. First up with Netflix, Julie Delpy is heading up a new series. This is a dramedy called On the Verge. There is a comedy series called Country Comfort that has been ordered by Netflix starring Katharine McPhee. The Crown will return for one more final season instead of two like originally was planned, but the show creators have said on the record that they naturally came to a conclusion that there was only one season left, and that's why it's only coming back for one more final season. Adam Sandler has renewed his deal with Netflix, and he will make 4 more movies. If you're unfamiliar with that, he's been making a variety of different movies since 2015. We'll talk more about that in a second. Then Netflix orders the political thriller series called White Stork, which stars Tom Hiddleston. Out of all this news, the Adam Sandler thing is the one that stands out to me. He's been making movies since 2015 at Netflix. This all stemmed from a bunch of his movies being at Netflix and getting a lot of views. So Netflix approached him and said, listen, we're interested in potentially making some movies. He had some okay luck making theatrical movies, but after a lot of his super successful ones, Waterboy, Happy Gilmore, even Big Daddy, those were 10 years ago, and a lot of the movies he produced since then weren't doing very well in the box office, so studios were a little bit more hesitant to work with him. However, Netflix isn't like a normal studio, and they're looking for people who are watching it, not necessarily people who are paying for it. So over the course of his time with Netflix since 2015, he's produced a number of movies, whether it be him actually starring in the films or actually just being part of the behind the scenes, producing the films. He's been involved in a lot of different films. Most recently, his film Uncut Gems came out, which is not on Netflix. They actually did do a theatrical release with that because that was a joint project with A24. But that project actually got some Oscar possibilities with his performance, and a lot of critics were saying he did a really, really good job of playing the character in that film. That film, I believe, is set to debut at the end of February or early March in the U.S. I believe it's already available internationally. But he's producing a bunch of movies, and the reason why is because Netflix has actually gone out and bragged that the Adam Sandler content on their service has been watched more than 2 billion hours. He's clearly very popular, and he's probably making a good chunk of money. Also, the movie Murder Mystery, which co-starred Jennifer Aniston, was one of the most successful films that they had released on the service. So, needless to say, if you're an Adam Sandler fan, you're going to be seeing a lot more Adam Sandler projects in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's great that Netflix was able to keep an actor of that caliber still on the payroll and to still keep contract to produce more movies and more content. I think it's good on their part, just to see that. Obviously, Adam Sandler sees the benefit for him and his talents and his movies to be on Netflix. I think that's great for them and them finding actors and making projects that people will tend to watch. I mean, I think there is something about how a lot of his movies, they might not always be the best, but they're definitely watchable, and that's definitely what Netflix is all about right now. Is trying to keep people's attention, trying to get them interested and keep them on the service, and that's definitely what they're doing with Adam Sandler. So I think this is great for them. I think the thing that's interesting for me about the Netflix news, and it's the only thing I found of interesting note. I mean, yeah, I think it's great that they able to keep Adam Sandler, is just this political thriller series with Tom Hiddleston. To me, that's interesting. Like, I would check out Netflix for that. So I mean, that's what interests me about Netflix this week is hearing about this Tom Hiddleston political thriller series, White Stork, and just checking out what that's about. So I'm excited about that because I love a good political thriller series, and I like Tom Hiddleston a lot. So
all right, so then moving over to Prime Video, Amazon has picked up 6 series from the Spanish market, specifically 2 docuseries and the rights to 4 dramas. These are series that previously already aired in the Spanish market, but they're going to be bringing them to the international market outside of Spain. Jumping over to Apple TV Plus, There is a dramedy focusing on the 1980s aerobics that it's very close to a series order. This will star Rose Byrne. There is a musical comedy series starring Cecilia Strong, which is also nearing a series order. Jumping over to Disney Plus, two big things happen. First, Disney has acquired a Hamilton, the Broadway play, which will end up on Disney Plus after a theatrical run. And then their release months have been announced for a number of top-tier programming for Disney Plus. So we're going to discuss both of these elements, but the first one is Hamilton. So they are not adapting Hamilton. That's not what they picked up. What they actually picked up was they filmed Hamilton a couple of weeks before the original cast left the production. And when they filmed it with multiple different angles so that it could all be edited together as one production. And they're actually going to release that. It's not like some of these other ones, like the recent Cats. I mean, there's a ton, Rent or West Side Story or Jersey Boys. None of these ones that they are just taking the film, the play, and adapting it for film. This is actually just a straight production of the actual play on Broadway with the original cast. So the thing that I was left with the question of, they announced that it's going to be hitting theaters in October of 2021. And while it specifically says in the article over on Deadline that they had to promise that they weren't going to release, any studio that was going to buy the rights to the film had to promise they weren't going to air, or they weren't going to release the film earlier than 2020. Obviously, we're in 2020. I guess my question is, why would they wait until a year and a half after they get the rights? I don't imagine it would take that long, but I don't know that we're necessarily going to have an answer. But that was part of the announcement that I thought was slightly odd, was that it was going to be so far out in time.
Yeah, that's definitely weird. Maybe it could just be because of, production issues with the actual Broadway production and it's still being out and stuff like that. And so who knows? We don't quite know those things, but I think it's great. I think it's going to really drive interest in Disney Plus, at least for, the week that it comes out, just because there are a lot of people who have not been able to see Hamilton. And I think it's, I met someone recently who their kid worked in that Broadway play. They were really talking about how hard it is to get tickets, and it's just, they're just describing to me some situations where people were trying to bribe them to try to steal tickets from them, to try to steal this guy's computer so they can, because he was a tech guy, to steal his computer and see, different, potential footages from the play since he worked for it. It's just hearing some of those stories, just how much people are very obsessed about this, in the musical. I think it's great that for Disney Plus, it's definitely going to get a lot of eyeballs on that service. I think it's great that Disney Plus gets to have this on their service, but unfortunately, it's just a tiny piece of content. I just wish that there was more. That still doesn't solve their long-term problems.
Exactly. All right. So then the other part of the Disney Plus announcements was that they've announced the release date months for a number of the shows. Specifically, as has been previously rumored, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier will debut in August, and then The Mandalorian Season 2 will debut in October, and then we will have WandaVision premiering in December. Loki is coming sometime in 2021, but those were the only ones that were actually discussed on the investor call just a couple days ago for the Q1 results. Now, the one thing that I want to say is, I'm pretty sure we've talked about these release dates before, in the sense, in a hypothetical sense of, we know we're not having any Marvel shows until The Falcon Winter Soldier, which for the longest time has been rumored for August, so I'm positive we've talked about that. But I'm pretty sure we talked about the fact that the Falcon Winter Soldier was going to have 6 episodes. If it starts in late August and runs 6 straight weeks, it would be, going into the beginning of October, which then leads right into The Mandalorian, which, if that has 8 episodes like the first season, would lead straight into December, and then WandaVision comes up. So I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. I know for a fact I've talked about it offline, but if we haven't talked about it, that was something that I know that we have discussed. But it's clear that they are trying to make sure that there's a lot of content that's going to be coming out consecutively once the Marvel shows start, because they're going to put in the other, they're going to put in The Mandalorian to fill in the gap between the 2 Marvel shows. And I think as time progresses, that's something we're probably going to see more consistently instead of having larger gaps. And we've talked about this. This is not something that we haven't talked about, of course, but it's something that we know that it's a struggle in the beginning to have an insane amount of content. Most services don't have the ability to do that. I don't think any service at this point is launched with a full slate of content. However, Disney Plus, they had a number of things that they had already announced and talked about. It was just a matter of getting those shows into production and getting them to a point where they could actually confirm timeframes that those series would actually be coming. So now we know when they're coming.
Yeah, I think it's great that we finally get a lot more specifics. I think it's great that, once Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out, it's that ball is being pushed and it's easier to keep momentum. As when you start projects, it's great to keep the momentum. So it's great to see that steady stream of content, coming out by, the Marvel side and the Star Wars side, the Lucasfilm side of, Disney, the Disney Plus pipeline. So it's great to see that. I'm excited for Disney Plus, but it's hard to just to find the series that you want, to find the creative and the talent and stuff like that. So it's the impatient person in me is just kind of like, all right, I want more content by Disney Plus. I like what I got. I want more, but it's just kind of the way how it is. It's hard to build up infrastructure. It's hard to build up momentum in your studios, and it just takes time. So, but it's great to see and it's great to hear. And I was really excited when I was watching the Super Bowl and I saw teaser trailer ads for the Loki series, the WandaVision, for the Falcon and Winter Soldier, TV spots. I was really happy to see that, just because it just means, okay, Disney Plus, they're not forgetting about that. So I'm happy to see that, just personally as a fan and as just a subscriber of the service.
Definitely. All right. So then moving over to HBO Max, there's a K-pop young adult novel called I'll Be the One that is being adapted. Gabrielle Union will be executive producing a show called Afropunks. Then HBO Max has acquired On the Record after the film departed Apple TV Plus. Now, this is the film that we talked about. I believe it was about 2 episodes ago that Oprah was originally producing, executive producer for, and she decided that she was stepping away from the project because she had some creative differences with the directing team that was behind the documentary. Then it came out that without her support, it was very unlikely that it was going to release on Apple TV Plus. They ended up the directing team took the film to Sundance, and actually the rights were bought by HBO Max. So it's clear that that whole deal at Apple TV Plus was contingent on Oprah's connection to the film, because otherwise I don't think it would have been just easily picked up by HBO Max. So the other services for the past week, we have Quibi. There was a celebrity reality series called Bad Ideas with Adam Devine that has been picked up. This will feature Adam Devine doing a variety of weird, out of the ordinary things with celebrities. There's a dramedy called Heartbeats that is currently in development at Quibi. And then jumping over to Hulu, Hulu picked up a movie called Bad Hair at Sundance for a total of $8 million for worldwide rights. So that is all the other services. As far as trailers, there is a number of different trailers that have come out over the past week. Love is Blind on Netflix coming February 13th. Lock and Key on Netflix February 7th. Your Attention Please on Hulu February 9th. The Fugitive on Quibi, which is coming April 2020. Elba vs. Block on Quibi. This is coming April 2020. Flipped on Quibi. This is coming April 2020. I'm Not Okay With This on Netflix coming February 26th. The Expanding Universe of Ashley Garcia on Netflix February 17th. Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet on Apple TV Plus coming February 7th. Into the Dark, My Valentine on Hulu February 7th. Altered Carbon Season 2 on Netflix February 27th. Blow the Man Down on Prime Video March 20th. And All the Bright Places on Netflix February 28th. Out of all these trailers that have released, nothing really super stood out to me. The one thing that I was kind of glad to see is we're starting to see some trailers for some of the Quibi projects. Flipped looks like a typical comedy that you might see on Fox. So it's not something that's too out there as far as content. It'll be interesting to see how it gets broken up into the smaller segments, as we know Quibi will be doing. The Fugitive looks pretty interesting, except for the fact that by the base of it, again, I have to question how it's going to work with these smaller segments instead of, actual episodes. And all all of the content that Quibi has shown looks good, and this is what I was hoping for. And I talked about last month when we talked about the Quibi keynote, how it just felt like they were focusing too heavily on stuff that wasn't the content. And even at the Television Critics Association and TCAs last month, they didn't really focus and showcase any of the content other than just having some of the cast members from some of the shows talking about the shows. But they didn't really release any trailers at the time, and there really wasn't a whole lot of talk about it. So it's good to see that Quibi is actually getting some of the content out there so that people can start to get acquainted with what the service will be able to offer. Quibi also released a quick Super Bowl ad that showcased basically describing what Quibi is and explained that it's, quick episodes that you watch on the go. It's nice to see that, we're starting to see some stuff from Quibi, and I imagine we're only going to be seeing a lot more because they've got a slew of content that's going to be coming out when the service launches in April.
That's great to hear that they have more, trailers and stuff about Quibi. I think, on the news side, we keep up with it and we see the business, but I think it's great to get a better grasp of what the entertainment is going to be instead of proof of concepts to see just something more that, Quibi is being for real. It's not just some startup idea. It is trying to become a real player. So it's great to see more from them.
As far as new releases go over the next 2 weeks, there's a couple of different things that I'm kind of looking forward to. Probably the two that I'm most looking forward to is I'm going to definitely be checking out Lock and Key. I feel like, at least based off of the trailer, it's something that I could watch with my older son, and definitely looks like it's geared towards middle schoolers in general. The other show is Narcos Mexico, which I'm probably going to watch season 1 as well as season 2. I haven't seen season 1 yet. I've watched the original Narcos series, but it's definitely something that I'd like to take a look at and watch. The trailer looks great. I really enjoyed the first Narcos. I just never got around to Narcos Mexico. Those are the two series that I'm probably looking most forward to.
Honestly, from these Narcos Mexico and Altered Carbon season 2 are the two that catch my eye the most as being the most interesting and the ones that I'm going to probably check out soon.
So if you only listen to our content episodes, one, you should definitely check out the other episodes that we released earlier in the week. But if you only listen to the content episodes because that's what you're interested in, you probably missed the fact that we said on this past week that next week we're actually going to be going on a quick 1 week hiatus. We're just going to take the week off. We've got some other stuff going on. Rather than releasing a couple extra episodes like we did over the holidays, we decided there hasn't been a lot of news recently to really go over and strongly discuss. A lot of the discussion points we've actually had time to do because it's kind of a slow time of the year for a lot of news. And we know that while there are a number of different services that are going to be coming very soon, and we're going to start hearing more news, and there's going to be more content news as we get closer to the launch of Quibi and HBO Max and Peacock. Right now, it's just a little bit, and there's not a whole lot to discuss. So we're just going to take a week off. Going forward, we might be changing some things up. So if you are so inclined, we'd love to hear feedback from the people who are listening to this show, whether you're listening on YouTube, whether you're listening. I do want to call out, we did get a message on YouTube saying that you guys are loving our videos, but you wish there was some sort of actual visual content. Unfortunately, we're still growing, so that's not possible at this point in time, but it's something that we would definitely be interested in down the line. But we do appreciate you listening to the podcast on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. But we would appreciate if you could send us an email, thestreamingwars@gmail.com, with any questions, comments, concerns, feedback that you'd like to give us about the show, whether or not you have something that you'd like to see covered more or something covered less. We'd like to hear from you guys because obviously we're producing this content, and part of it is the two of us just discussing the streaming services, but part of it also is we like to, we want to talk about stuff that people actually want to hear about too. So any feedback at all is always greatly appreciated. So with that being said, be sure to follow us on Twitter and join our Discord to check out all the articles that we talk about here on the podcast and some that we don't talk about on the podcast. Also, you can follow us on Instagram for all latest announcements related to new episodes of the podcast releasing. As I've mentioned, you can listen to the podcast on a variety of different podcast networks, as well as YouTube and Pandora. And as I've said, be sure to leave reviews wherever you are listening to the podcast, because that always helps the podcast out. With all of that being said, for Tony and myself, this has been the Streaming Wars, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Streaming Wars. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. Links can be found at thestreamingwars.io.